Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the message arrived that would change everything. The bridge of the research vessel New Dawn was quiet, except for the soft hum of the engines and the occasional beep from the navigation systems. Jake had been commanding this ship for 5 years now, and in all that time the most exciting thing they had encountered was a new type of space algae. Dr. Lisa Harper walked onto the bridge with a confused look on her face. She held a datapad in her hands and kept staring at it like it might bite her. Jake knew that look well enough. Lisa was one of the smartest people he had ever met, but when something really surprised her, she got this expression like a child who had just seen magic for the first time. "Captain, we just received a priority transmission from the Zephyrian homeworld," Lisa said, still staring at the datapad. "I think you need to read this yourself." Jake set down his coffee cup and reached for the pad. The Zephyrians were the oldest and most respected race in the Galactic Federation. They had been around for millions of years and had helped create the peace treaties that had kept the galaxy calm for 3,000 years. When they sent a message, everyone listened. The official seal of the Zephyrian High Council appeared on the screen, followed by formal text in the ancient diplomatic language that all Federation members used for important communications. Jake read the first few lines and nearly choked on his coffee. "This is a formal declaration of war against the human species," Jake read out loud. "Effective immediately, all peace treaties between humanity and the Galactic Federation are dissolved." Commander Ryan Torres looked up from his tactical station. Ryan was a serious man who rarely smiled, but now his eyebrows were raised so high they almost disappeared under his dark hair. "Sir, did you just say war?" Ryan asked. Jake kept reading. The document was full of fancy language, but the basic message was clear. 400 different alien civilizations had signed this declaration. They were accusing humanity of being dangerous to the galactic order. The charges included things like excessive creativity, unpredictable behavior, and dangerous optimism. Lisa started laughing. It began as a small giggle, but soon she was laughing so hard she had to sit down. "They're declaring war on us because we're too optimistic?" she managed to say between laughs. Jake found himself smiling as he continued reading. The aliens claimed that humans were corrupting younger species with impossible dreams and showing reckless disregard for established protocols. They demanded that humanity either surrender completely or face the combined might of nearly half the known galaxy. "Listen to this part," Jake said, trying to keep his voice serious. "Humanity is hereby charged with the crime of attempting the impossible on a regular basis, thereby setting unrealistic expectations for other species." Ryan shook his head slowly. "They're declaring war on us for trying too hard?" The bridge crew began gathering around as word spread through the ship. Engineer Frank Collins arrived first, wiping grease from his hands with a dirty rag. Frank was always working on something, usually trying to make their engines run just a little bit faster or their sensors see just a little bit farther. "What's all the laughing about?" Frank asked. Lisa handed him the datapad. Frank read for a moment, then started chuckling. "They say we're dangerous because we don't accept limitations? That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said about us." Dr. Maria Santos, the ship's xenologist, arrived next. Maria specialized in studying alien cultures and had spent years trying to understand why some species advanced quickly, while others seemed to stay the same for thousands of years. She read the declaration with growing amusement. "This is fascinating," Maria said. "They're not afraid of our weapons or our military. They're afraid of our ideas." Jake looked around at his crew. These were good people, smart people, but they were hardly the type that should terrify advanced alien civilizations. Lisa spent most of her time looking at microscopic organisms. Frank was always covered in engine grease. Maria collected alien poetry. Ryan played chess in his spare time and was terrible at it. "Captain," Ryan said, "we should probably contact Earth Command and let them know about this." Jake nodded, but he was still reading the declaration. The aliens had given humanity 30 standard days to surrender. They expected Earth to give up without a fight when faced with such overwhelming odds. The document even included helpful suggestions for how humans could peacefully relocate to remote areas of the galaxy where they would be properly supervised. "You know what the funny part is?" Jake said. "They spent 3,000 years watching us and they still don't understand us at all." Lisa wiped tears from her eyes. She had finally stopped laughing long enough to speak. "They think we'll panic and run away. They have no idea that telling a human something is impossible is like waving a red flag at a bull. Frank was already pulling up technical specifications on his tablet. Captain, if we're going to war, I have some ideas about engine modifications that I've been wanting to try. Jake opened a communication channel to Earth. The message would take several hours to reach home, but he wanted to send their response as quickly as possible. He thought about what to say to the most powerful alliance in galactic history, an alliance that had just declared war on humanity with overwhelming force. "This is Captain Morrison of the New Dawn," he said into the communicator. "We have received your declaration of war. Thank you for the advance notice. We appreciate the 30-day warning period. Please be advised that humanity accepts your challenge. We'll be ready for you." He paused for a moment, then added, "Oh, and thank you for the compliments about our creativity and optimism. We're proud of those qualities." After ending the transmission, Jake looked around at his crew again. They were all smiling now, even Ryan. There was something about the alien declaration that struck them as hilarious rather than terrifying. Maybe it was the formal language used to describe human crimes like hope and imagination. Maybe it was the idea that 400 advanced civilizations felt threatened by one species that had only been in space for a few centuries. "Captain," Lisa said, "what are our orders?" Jake pulled up the navigation system. Earth Command had sent new coordinates along with a simple message. "Proceed to outer colonies and prepare for contingencies." It was typical military language that could mean almost anything. "We're heading to the Kepler system," Jake announced. "Apparently we need to prepare for contingencies." As the New Dawn changed course and jumped to hyperspace, the crew continued discussing the alien declaration. They found new things to laugh about in every paragraph. The aliens had accused them of corrupting galactic youth with dangerous concepts like unlimited potential and spreading the harmful belief that any problem can be solved with sufficient effort. "You know," Frank said as he headed back to the engine room, "if they're this worried about our ideas, wait until they see what we've actually built." Jake settled back into his captain's chair and picked up his coffee. It had gone cold, but he drank it anyway. Somewhere out there, the largest military force in galactic history was preparing to attack Earth. They expected humanity to surrender or flee in terror. Instead, humans were laughing. High Admiral Vextar floated in the center of the War Council chamber, his energy form pulsing with colors that showed his confidence. The Zephyrians had no physical bodies like the younger species, having evolved beyond such crude limitations millions of years ago. Around him, holographic displays showed representatives from dozens of allied worlds, all eager to hear his plans for the coming war. "Fellow council members," Vextar began, his voice carrying the weight of ancient authority, "we gather today to discuss the swift elimination of the human threat. Our intelligence reports confirm what we have long suspected. This young species has become too dangerous to ignore." Admiral Kethron of the Shardari crystalline race stepped forward. His body was made of living crystal that reflected light in beautiful patterns, but his expression was all business. The Shardari were known throughout the galaxy for their military precision and their detailed analysis of enemy capabilities. "Admiral Vextar, I have completed our assessment of human military strength," Kethron said, activating a holographic display that filled the chamber. "The results are exactly what we expected from such a primitive species." The display showed Earth's solar system with detailed markings for every human military installation. Numbers and statistics floated beside each location, painting a picture of a species that was hopelessly outmatched. "Earth's total fleet consists of 50,000 vessels," Kethron continued. "Our combined alliance commands 2.8 million ships. Their largest vessels are barely 3 kilometers long, while our dreadnoughts span over 20 kilometers. Their technology appears to be at least 500 years behind our most advanced members." General Thexra of the insectoid Vorthak hive clicked her mandibles in what passed for laughter among her species. "Admiral, surely you jest. 50,000 ships against nearly 3 million? This will not be a war. This will be pest control." The council chamber filled with similar expressions of amusement from the various alien representatives. To them, the numbers told the whole story. Humanity was a recent addition to the galactic community, having achieved faster than light travel only 3 centuries ago. They were young, primitive, and laughably outnumbered. "What of their weapons technology?" asked Commander Zelthon of the energy-based Luxari. "Surely they cannot pose any real threat to our advanced systems." Kethron brought up another display showing human weapon designs. Their primary armaments are kinetic-based projectile weapons. Crude metal slugs fired at high velocity. They still use explosive warheads and basic energy beams, nothing that our shields cannot easily deflect. Vextar pulsed with satisfaction, as expected from a species that only recently learned to split atoms. Their entire technological development follows predictable patterns. They are exactly where our models said they would be after 300 years of space travel. Far across the galaxy, General Patricia Wells stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the alien fleet movements through long-range sensors. Patricia was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but she had spent 40 years in Earth's military and had seen enough to know when someone was making a mistake. "General, the alien armada is assembling in the Proxima sector," reported Lieutenant Colonel Danny Brooks, her aide and one of the best tactical analysts in the fleet. "Intelligence estimates they'll have full deployment ready in 25 days. Patricia nodded, studying the massive display that showed alien ship positions across dozens of star systems. The enemy fleet was indeed enormous, but she was not looking at the numbers. She was studying how they moved, how they organized, how they thought. "Danny, look at their formation patterns," Patricia said, pointing to the display. "What do you see?" Danny studied the screen for a moment. "Very organized, General. Textbook military deployment. Perfect spacing, optimal defensive positions, logical command structure." "Exactly," Patricia said with a slight smile. "Textbook, logical, predictable." She turned to face her aide. "They're fighting the last war, Danny. They're preparing to face an enemy that follows the same rules they do." The general walked to another section of the command center where civilian traffic controllers were managing what appeared to be a massive evacuation effort. Hundreds of civilian ships were leaving Earth and the inner colonies, heading toward the outer rim of human space. "Status report on the evacuations," Patricia asked the traffic control supervisor. "All proceeding according to schedule, General," the supervisor replied. "We're maintaining the appearance of panic while positioning our assets exactly where you requested." Patricia nodded. To any alien observer, it would look like terrified humans fleeing in random directions. In reality, every ship movement was carefully planned. The evacuations were actually deployments, but the aliens would not realize that until it was too late. Back in the Zephyrian Council chamber, the discussion had moved to dividing up human territory after the expected quick victory. The various species were already arguing over who would get which star systems. "The Earth system will become a research facility," Vextar declared. "We need to study how this species developed such dangerous ideas. We must ensure that no other young race follows their path." "What about their colonies?" asked General Thexra. "The Vorthak require new breeding worlds. Human planets have suitable atmosphere and gravity." Admiral Kethron projected star charts showing human settlements. "There are 147 human colonies spread across 83 star systems. More than enough for everyone to claim their share." The aliens spent hours discussing the post-war division of human space. None of them considered the possibility that they might lose. The numbers were too clear, the technological gap too obvious. This was not really a war they were planning, but a simple police action against an upstart species that had forgotten its place. "What is our timeline for complete victory?" asked Commander Zilek of the Mechanical Siberian Collective. Kethron consulted his tactical computers. "Conservative estimates suggest total human defeat within 6 standard days once we reach their solar system. Optimistic projections indicate they may surrender immediately when they see our fleet size." Vextar pulsed with approval. "Excellent. We will offer them one final chance to surrender when we arrive at Earth. If they refuse, we will demonstrate the folly of challenging the established galactic order." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison received his new orders while the New Dawn traveled through hyperspace toward the outer colonies. The message was brief and came directly from General Wells herself. "Captain Morrison, proceed to Kepler 442 system and await further instructions. Prepare your crew for extended operations. Maintain communication silence after arrival. Remember, the galaxy is about to learn something new about humanity." Jake shared the message with his senior staff. Dr. Lisa Harper was fascinated by the scientific implications of their situation, while Commander Ryan Torres was already running tactical simulations. "Sir," Ryan said, "according to our intelligence, we're facing impossible odds. Any conventional analysis would suggest immediate surrender." Jake smiled at his tactical officer. Ryan, when has humanity ever been conventional? We've spent 300 years in space, and in that time we've never once done what other species expected us to do. Dr. Harper looked up from her research tablet. Captain, I've been reviewing the alien declaration again. They're not just afraid of our military. They're afraid of what we represent. They've had 3,000 years of perfect order, perfect predictability. We're chaos to them. Good, Jake said. Chaos is what we do best. As the alien armada continued its methodical advance toward human space, the Zephyrian High Council finished their preparations. They had planned for every contingency, accounted for every possible human response, and prepared overwhelming force to deal with any resistance. What they had not planned for was the possibility that their 3,000-year-old understanding of warfare might be completely wrong. The alien armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. High Admiral Vextar watched through the sensors as his massive fleet took position around Earth's home system. 2.8 million ships stretched across space in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready for what should be the shortest war in galactic history. Magnificent, Vextar said to his command staff. No species in the galaxy has ever faced such overwhelming force. The humans will surrender within minutes of seeing our fleet. Admiral Ketheron activated the communication systems to broadcast their final demand for surrender. The message would reach every human installation in the system within moments. Ketheron expected an immediate response of unconditional surrender, possibly with pleas for mercy. Instead, the response came from Admiral Ben Clark aboard the space station Defiance's Gate, positioned near Earth's moon. Ben was an old soldier with scars on his face and gray in his beard, but his voice was steady and clear. This is Admiral Clark of Earth Defense Command. We have received your ultimatum. Our response is simple. Come and take it. The bridge of Vextar's flagship fell silent. The other alien commanders looked at each other in confusion. They had expected fear, panic, desperate negotiations. They had not expected defiance from a species facing impossible odds. Admiral, perhaps they do not understand the magnitude of our force, suggested Ketheron. Shall we demonstrate our weapons? Vextar pulsed with irritation. Begin the attack. Target their military installations first. Show them the futility of resistance. The alien fleet opened fire with weapons that could vaporize entire asteroids. Energy beams and plasma bolts streaked across space toward Earth's orbital defenses. The aliens expected to see human installations explode in brilliant flashes of destruction. Instead, something impossible happened. The human defenses did not meet the attack head-on as military doctrine demanded. The Earth ships scattered in all directions like startled fish, moving in patterns that made no tactical sense. Some ships seemed to simply vanish from sensors entirely. What is happening? Vextar demanded. Where did their ships go? Dr. Sophie Graham watched the battle begin from her laboratory deep inside Earth's moon. Sophie had spent 20 years working on projects that other scientists called impossible, theories that pushed the boundaries of known physics. While the galaxy enjoyed 3,000 years of peace, humans had never stopped asking the most dangerous question in the universe. What if? Initiate the dimensional shift protocols, Sophie said into her communication device. All ships are cleared for phase transition. Across the Sol system, human vessels that had seemed to retreat suddenly reappeared in impossible locations. Ships that had been fleeing toward the outer planets materialized behind alien formations. Vessels that sensors showed as destroyed flickered back into existence with weapons blazing. Colonel Janet Phillips led a squadron of fighters that phased in and out of normal space like ghosts. Her ships could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, striking at alien command vessels before vanishing into spaces that did not exist on any star chart. Eagle Squadron to command, Janet reported as her fighters appeared inside an alien battleship, fired their weapons and disappeared before the enemy could react. The enemy shields are useless against phase-shifted weapons. They cannot defend against attacks that come from dimensions they do not know exist. The alien fleet found itself fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules of warfare. Human ships appeared and disappeared without warning, struck from impossible angles, and used weapons that behaved in ways that violated established physics. Vextar stared at his tactical displays in growing horror. His sensors showed human ships in locations where no ships could be, using weapons that should not work, and moving in ways that defied everything the galaxy knew about space combat. How is this possible? Vextar asked his science officers. Their technology readings show they are centuries behind us. The answer came from an unexpected source. One of the human ships transmitted a data package directly to the alien flagship. The message was from Dr. Sophie Graham herself. "Greetings, Admiral Vextar. I am Dr. Graham, Director of Earth's Department of Impossible Things. You seem confused by our capabilities, so allow me to explain. While your civilization spent 3,000 years maintaining the status quo, humanity spent that time asking a simple question. What if the impossible is just something we have not figured out yet?" The transmission continued as human ships continued their impossible attacks. "Your scientists told you that faster-than-light communication was impossible. We invented quantum entanglement networks. Your physicists said that matter transportation was impossible. We built devices that move objects through folded space. Your engineers claimed that dimensional manipulation was impossible. We learned to exist in multiple realities simultaneously." Admiral Clark's voice joined the transmission from Defiance's gate. "You declared war on us for being too creative, too optimistic, and too willing to attempt the impossible. Thank you for the warning. It gave us time to deploy our impossible weapons. The battle turned completely as more human capabilities revealed themselves. Weapons platforms that had been hidden throughout the solar system for decades suddenly activated. These were not military installations built for war, but engineering projects created by humans who wanted to see if they could solve impossible problems. Each platform represented humanity's answer to a theoretical question. What if we needed to move a planet? What if we had to stop time in a small area? What if we could turn a star into a weapon? The platforms had been built over centuries, not for conquest, but because humans found it impossible to leave a question unanswered. Lieutenant Commander Alex Rivera led boarding parties that did not just capture alien ships, but understood them completely within hours. Human pattern recognition and adaptability allowed them to master alien technology faster than the aliens themselves could deploy it. "This is impossible," Kethron said as he watched human soldiers operating, captured Shardari vessels better than his own crews. "They cannot learn our systems this quickly, sir." "With respect," one of his officers replied, "I think we need to stop using the word impossible around humans." The alien formation began to collapse as ship after ship fell to human forces that seemed to be everywhere at once. Vextar realized that the humans had not been hiding their technological capabilities out of fear or deception. They had been hiding them out of politeness. "Cease fire," Vextar commanded his fleet. "All ships cease fire immediately." The shooting stopped, leaving the alien armada floating in space surrounded by human vessels that flickered in and out of existence like fireflies. Admiral Clark's voice came over the communication system again. "Admiral Vextar, we accept your surrender. Please prepare to discuss terms." For the first time in millions of years, a Zephyrian felt genuine fear. The humans had not just defeated the largest military force in galactic history. They had made it look easy. Dr. Graham's transmission concluded with words that would echo across the galaxy. "You wanted to know why humans laugh when faced with the impossible. It is because we know that impossible is just another word for something we have not invented yet." News of the Sol system disaster spread through alien space faster than anyone expected. High Admiral Vextar's surrender had been broadcast across the galaxy, but many alien commanders refused to believe what they were hearing. The idea that humans had defeated the largest fleet in galactic history seemed impossible. Commander Zelthon of the Luxari energy beings gathered his remaining forces at the Arcturus staging area. He had pulled back from the Sol system when Vextar's fleet started disappearing from sensors, but he was not ready to admit defeat. The Luxari had ruled their sector of space for 50,000 years, and they would not bow to upstart humans. "All fleet commanders, this is Zelthon," he broadcast to the scattered alien forces. "The Zephyrians may have failed, but we still outnumber the humans 10 to 1. We will attack their colonies simultaneously across 50 star systems. They cannot defend everywhere at once." What Zelthon did not know was that Captain Jake Morrison's ship, the New Dawn, was listening to every word he said. The vessel that the aliens had dismissed as a simple research ship was floating invisible, just outside the Arcturus system, recording everything. "Interesting plan," Jake said to his crew as they monitored the alien communications. "They still think we fight like they do." Dr. Lisa Harper was studying the alien fleet positions on her screen. "Captain, they're spreading their forces thin to attack all our colonies at once. From their perspective, it makes perfect sense. Divide our attention, force us to choose which worlds to save. Commander Ryan Torres looked up from his tactical station with something that might have been a smile. Sir, should we inform them that we do not actually need to choose? Jake activated the communication system that connected him to thousands of other civilian ships scattered throughout the galaxy. These vessels had spent weeks moving into position, while appearing to be random refugee flights. Now it was time to reveal their true purpose. All units, this is Morrison. Execute Protocol 7. The hunters have become the hunted. Across alien space, what had appeared to be panicked human evacuations suddenly transformed into the most coordinated military operation in galactic history. Cargo ships revealed themselves as destroyers. Transport vessels deployed weapons that should not have been able to fit inside their hulls. Research stations turned out to be military command centers. Lieutenant Commander Alex Rivera found himself commanding a captured alien dreadnought that was now crewed entirely by humans. His boarding party had taken the ship 3 days earlier, and they had already modified it with human technology that the original builders never imagined. Sir, we have alien forces approaching the Kepler colonies, his tactical officer reported. Estimated time to engagement, 4 hours. Alex smiled as he studied the enemy formation. They're expecting to find frightened colonists hiding behind planetary shields. Instead, they're going to find us. The first sign that something was wrong came when the alien attack fleet reached the Kepler system and discovered that the human colonies were not where their intelligence said they should be. Entire cities had been moved to different locations on the planets, and new installations had appeared overnight. Marine Sergeant Kelly Price led a ground assault team that had been hiding on the Krathani fortress world of Mordesh for 2 weeks. The Krathani were known throughout the galaxy as the finest warriors, with military traditions that stretched back millions of years. Their fortress worlds were considered impossible to assault. Kelly and her team materialized inside the main command center using the same dimensional phase technology that had surprised the aliens in the Sol system. The Krathani guards found themselves facing human soldiers who appeared from thin air, struck with precision and vanished before counterattacks could be organized. Command, this is Sergeant Price, Kelly reported as her team secured the fortress communication center. Package delivered. Mordesh is now under human control. Similar reports came in from dozens of worlds across alien space. Human forces appeared where they should not be, struck where they were not expected, and accomplished objectives that alien military analysts had calculated would take months or years. The real shock came when Professor Carl Martinez, working with captured alien archives, made a discovery that changed everything. Carl was a historian who specialized in galactic civilizations, and he had been studying Zephyrian records that human forces had captured during the Sol battle. General Wells, Carl said during an emergency communication to Earth Command, I have found something that explains everything. The 3,000-year peace was not maintained through diplomacy. It was enforced through suppression. Patricia Wells listened as Carl explained what he had discovered in the ancient files. The Zephyrians had been deliberately holding back the technological and cultural development of younger species for millennia. They had shared just enough knowledge to keep other races dependent, but never enough to allow them to advance beyond Zephyrian control. General, they were not trying to maintain peace. Carl continued. They were maintaining a system that kept them in power. Younger species were not allowed to develop technologies that might threaten Zephyrian authority. This revelation spread through alien space like wildfire. Species after species began to realize that they had been used, controlled, and limited for thousands of years. The Krathani discovered that their ancient warrior traditions had been carefully shaped to prevent them from developing advanced weapons. The Shardari learned that their crystalline technology could have evolved far beyond its current limitations. Dr. Maria Santos worked with reformed alien scientists to analyze how much progress their civilizations could have made without Zephyrian interference. The results were staggering. Most species were hundreds or thousands of years behind where they should have been. They kept us all as children, said Dr. Zelnari, a Shardari scientist who had joined the human cause. We thought we were advanced, but we were living in carefully constructed limitations. The alien alliance began to collapse as one species after another withdrew from the war. Many did more than just withdraw. They actively switched sides and asked to join the humans in fighting against Zephyrian. Controlled engineer Frank Collins found himself leading mixed human and alien teams that were rapidly developing new technologies. Without Zephyrian restrictions, alien scientists were discovering capabilities they had never imagined possible. It turns out, Frank reported to Captain Morrison, that most of these species are actually quite brilliant once they stop limiting themselves. The Crithani have developed personal shields that make their warriors nearly invincible. The Shardari have created communication crystals that work across galactic distances instantly. High Admiral Vextar, now a prisoner aboard a human vessel, watched in growing despair as his carefully constructed galactic order collapsed around him. Species that had been loyal to the Zephyrians for millennia were now openly rebelling. "You do not understand what you have done," Vextar said to Admiral Clark during one of their conversations. "The galactic order maintains stability. Without our guidance, chaos will consume everything." Admiral Clark looked at the ancient being with something approaching pity. "Admiral, you maintained control, not stability. You kept an entire galaxy from reaching its potential because you were afraid of what might happen if they were allowed to grow. The war that was supposed to crush human expansion had instead liberated half the galaxy from thousands of years of artificial limitations. As more and more species joined the human cause, it became clear that the real battle was not about territory or resources. It was about the right to dream of the impossible and then make those dreams real." Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship as it approached the Zephyrian homeworld. The journey to this moment had taken 6 months since the war began, but it felt like a lifetime. Around him, a fleet of ships from dozens of different species traveled together toward what everyone hoped would be the final confrontation. The Zephyrian homeworld was unlike anything else in the galaxy. It existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, a swirling mass of pure energy and crystallized thought that had been the center of galactic civilization for millions of years. No physical being had ever set foot on its surface, and no military force had ever dared to approach it. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian High Council," reported Lieutenant Commander Alex Rivera from the communication station. "They are demanding that we halt our approach immediately." Jake smiled as he looked at the diverse crew working around him. Humans, Crithani, Shardari, and a dozen other species all working together in ways that the old galactic order had never allowed. This was what the galaxy could become when artificial barriers were removed. "Open a channel," Jake ordered. "Let me speak to them." The main screen filled with the image of High Counselor Morthak, an ancient Zephyrian whose energy form had existed since before most species had discovered fire. His colors pulsed with rage and desperation as he addressed the approaching fleet. "Admiral Morrison, you are making a grave error. We offer you one final chance to end this madness. Withdraw your forces, and we will negotiate a return to the proper order." Jake looked at the ancient being who had controlled galactic civilization for so long. "Counselor Morthak, we are not here to negotiate a return to your system. We are here to offer you something better." The response seemed to confuse the Zephyrian. "Better? We have maintained perfect peace for 3,000 years. What could possibly be better than that?" Engineer Frank Collins stepped forward from his station. Frank had been working with alien scientists for months, and together they had developed technologies that neither species could have created alone. "Counselor, with respect, you maintained perfect control. That is not the same thing as peace." Dr. Maria Santos joined the conversation from her position at the science station. "We have been studying your records, Counselor. You prevented wars by preventing progress. You stopped conflicts by stopping dreams. That is not peace. That is stagnation disguised as stability." The Zephyrian High Council had prepared for many possible outcomes when the human fleet reached their homeworld. They had weapons that could destroy entire star systems, defenses that had never been breached, and the accumulated power of millions of years of advancement. What they had not prepared for was a conversation about philosophy. "You do not understand," Morthak said, his energy form flickering with uncertainty. "Without our guidance, the younger species will destroy themselves. They will fight endless wars, create terrible weapons, consume their worlds. We have seen it happen before." Dr. Lisa Harper, now serving as the fleet's chief science officer, accessed the human research files that had been gathered over the past months. "Counselor, we have reviewed the historical records. Yes, some species destroyed themselves, but many others thrived when given the chance to grow. You punished an entire galaxy for the mistakes of a few." Jake watched as the Zephyrian Council members communicated among themselves in bursts of energy that moved too fast for other species to follow. They were clearly arguing, probably for the first time in millennia. The certainty that had defined their civilization was cracking under the weight of questions they had never allowed themselves to ask. "Admiral Morrison," Morthak said finally, "even if we accept your accusations, what alternative do you propose? How can the galaxy function without central authority to maintain order?" This was the moment Jake had been preparing for since the war began. Instead of answering with words, he activated a communication system that connected to every ship in the fleet, every liberated world, and every species that had joined the human cause. The transmission that followed was not a military broadcast or a political speech. It was a simple demonstration of what the galaxy had become in just 6 months of freedom. Krathani warriors shared their defensive technologies freely with former enemies. Shardari scientists collaborated on projects that pushed the boundaries of physics. Dozens of species worked together on problems that none of them could solve alone. "This is your alternative, Counselor," Jake said as the images flowed across the communication channel. "Not central control, but voluntary cooperation. Not enforced peace, but chosen partnership." Professor Carl Martinez had been working with historians from every liberated species to document what they had accomplished together. The results were staggering. In 6 months without Zephyrian restrictions, the allied species had made more technological and cultural progress than they had in the previous 1,000 years. "Counselor, look at what we have built," Carl said as he shared the research data. "Medical advances that could extend life across the galaxy. Transportation technology that makes travel between worlds as easy as walking across a room. Communication systems that allow instant contact across any distance." The most powerful demonstration came from Sergeant Kelly Price, broadcasting from a former Zephyrian prison world that had been transformed into a research colony. The planet had once held species that the Zephyrians considered too dangerous to allow freedom. Now it was home to the most advanced research facility in the galaxy. "Counselor Morthak, I am standing in a laboratory where former prisoners are working to solve problems that benefit every species in the galaxy," Kelly reported. "These people were locked away because they asked too many questions. Now their questions are leading to answers that will help everyone." The Zephyrian Council fell silent as they absorbed what they were seeing. The galaxy they had controlled for so long was changing faster than they had ever imagined possible. More importantly, it was changing for the better. "Admiral Morrison," Morthak said slowly, "what exactly are you asking of us?" Jake smiled as he looked around his bridge at the mixed crew of species working together. "Counselor, we are asking you to join us. You have knowledge and experience that could benefit everyone, but we are asking you to share it freely, not use it to control." The final surprise came when the Zephyrians realized that the human fleet had not come to destroy their homeworld or conquer their civilization. They had come to invite the oldest species in the galaxy to become part of something new. "We are offering you the chance to explore beyond the known galaxy," Dr. Harper explained, "to seek out new forms of life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before." High Counselor Morthak considered the offer for what felt like an eternity. Finally, his energy form pulsed with colors that no other species had ever seen from a Zephyrian: hope and curiosity. "Admiral Morrison, the Zephyrian Council accepts your proposal. We will join your new galactic commonwealth." The war that had begun with an attempt to crush human expansion ended with the formation of the most peaceful and prosperous civilization the galaxy had ever known. The irony was not lost on anyone. The species that the aliens had tried to suppress for being too dangerous had created the safest place in the universe. Dr. Harper stood in the observation deck of the New Dawn, watching as ships from hundreds of species worked together to build the first truly free society the galaxy had ever seen. Children from dozens of worlds learned together in schools that would have been forbidden under the old system, while their parents worked on projects that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The galaxy had finally learned why humans laughed when told something was impossible, because impossible was just another word for something that had not been invented yet.